Lovely to see you. I hope you can see me from back there. Is it okay? Am I blurry? Okay, thank you. Maybe I am. But wonderful to be with you today. I've been able to be part of just a few of the programs right before this. Awesome, wonderful things. And just thank you for your spirit and thank you for bringing the vibe of the kingdom. That is awesome. I loved that phrase. So cool. My name is Jake Ernest. I have the privilege of being an instructor here at American Heritage School, and I have the privilege of being able to learn a lot of cool things right now in some programs I'm endeavoring in. And it's just a really wonderful opportunity to be amongst you and to be here. Now I want to tell you a little bit about me, okay? But I'm going to do that through a story, actually. Now I know you have some pieces of paper on your table. We're eventually going to get to those, and you'll need something maybe if you so desire to write something down onto those pieces of paper in just a minute. But I'd like to tell you a little bit about me through a story. A couple years ago, I went to Italy, and it was awesome. Italy's a really cool place. I got to Rome, Italy. Can we just get a right? Okay, cool. Awesome. I loved Italy. I got to go to a lot of different places. One interesting place I got to go to is actually a farm right outside of Rome. Now, outside of Rome, this farm, it's not one thing you usually think about when you go to Rome, like, oh, I'm going to go to a farm. All right, cool. Okay? No, not necessarily. And more interesting was the type of farm this is. Now, everybody knows mostly that Rome and Italy are really known for their turkeys. Big piece of information. I know that didn't startle anybody. But turkeys was the big thing that Rome was known for. And so they had a huge turkey farm right outside of the city limits. And it was really awesome because we got to go to that and kind of tour this turkey farm. Now, when I got to the front part of the turkey farm, they had actually quite a big gate. I didn't know how big these turkeys were, but the gate kind of lifted up, one of those electric gates. So it lifted up, we walked in, and the first thing I noticed about this farm on my trip to Italy was a statue. There was a 9-foot tall statue, bronzed, of a turkey. Wow! That's some turkey. And I looked down at the bottom, and there was an inscription. And the inscription said, Vincenzo the Great. I was like, wow, okay, we must have stumbled upon one of Italy's ancient heirlooms, and it was Vincenzo. So, and underneath that, there was another inscription, which was about Vincenzo, and it just simply said, but I'll translate for you, because it was a turkey farm, right? As I was looking at this inscription, I was about to read, I noticed something quite startling. To my right, in a single file form and line, were turkeys. All standing at attention, looking at this statue, almost as if they were maybe paying respect to the statue. And they would stay there, look at the statue, and then they would walk away. But they would do it in a graceful manner. They would like grace their wing across the statue a little bit and then walk away. It's like, wow, this must be some turkey. So I want to reiterate to you, as best as I can, the inscription that was there on the statue. And it read, one day on this turkey farm, Vincenzo, the turkey, burst through a turkey door into a turkey hut and said, but translation. Alfonso, you're not going to believe this. I just learned to fly. Now, domestic turkeys can't fly, but somehow this turkey figured it out. And Alfonso responded, with translation. Vincenzo, you cannot simply show me, or rather, you cannot simply tell me. You must show me. So Vincenzo and Alfonso went down the turkey mile, down to Turkey Road, into this turkey field without the other turkeys. And Vincenzo said, okay, Alfonso, you're going to spread your left wing like this, and your right wing like this. You're going to flap, And the light refracting off of the planet Venus is going to come and flutter your wings here, and the light refracting from a solar flare from the sun is going to flutter your wings here. You're going to pump your left leg, and then you're going to fly. Now Alfonso's like, oh yes, makes sense. So he begins to do this, and it's a bit trial and error at first. It's kind of like, okay? But the other turkeys in the field are looking over there like, whoa, what is happening over there? And they start to join. And these turkeys begin to fly a little bit, trial and error again, just and then in the sky, okay? But pretty soon they start to get the hang of it. And they're flying, they're soaring in the sky, maybe kind of like a spiral into the sky, and they're going through the clouds. And they are just experiencing something they never have. It's just like a flap, flap, soar. Like, this is what the eagles do, right? Flap, flap, soar. Passing commercial airliners, and people like, there's turkeys outside the window. Eventually they land back down to the ground, and they're like, that was amazing, high wing. They walk home. That's it. That was the inscription on the statue. That was amazing. I was so startled by this. And as I looked down at the statue, I then looked to my right again, and little did I know, but there was one turkey still left in that line. And the turkey was no longer looking up at the statue, but he was looking at me. And I was looking at the turkey. The turkey looked up at me and said, which at that point, I'd become accustomed enough that I actually understood what he was saying. And he said, my child. I was like, whoa. Turkey, hi. He said, there's a problem with this story. I said, do tell. He said, how did they go home? How did they go home? They walked. And then he simply said, when you learn to fly, fly home. And then he left with this little... Now, when I told you that story at the beginning, I said, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. I went to Italy, but I never went to a turkey farm or anything of that nature. That story, though, to me, means so much. When I first heard it, which was actually... when someone told it to me, it meant it was a little bit different. I've then taken it and I've kind of added a lot of things and thrown a lot of different things in there. Maybe added some voices here and voices there. But it taught me something. I tell that story every once in a while to my students now, and I ask them, have you guys ever gone to a class or Sunday school, seminary, or anything like that, and you learned something there, and then you went home and someone asked you, hey, what'd you learn in seminary today? What'd you learn in school today? And your response was, faith. Yeah, that was there somewhere. Faith. Yeah. And we talk about this story, and I say, guys, when we learn to fly, whether it be a principle of the gospel, a moment that, a word or phrase that we need to remember to not walk home after that, but to fly home. Today, we've learned a lot of cool things. And we're going to learn a lot of cool things about kind of what I just mentioned here. A story and the power that stories can have. Now, a lot of you, when I say story, if you can kind of see this screen, this is a campfire. I think when we think of stories, we think of the experiences maybe where someone said something to us and it stuck with us. And I think a campfire is a good stereotype for this, where we sit around a campfire and we kind of share stories back to one another, which is an excellent thing. In fact, right now, what I'd like you to do, we're in kind of a workshop format. We're going to do some things in just a second. But I would like with you at your table for about the next 2 minutes, could you tell and share with someone A story that you remember from your childhood that someone told to you. It doesn't have to be a fictional story. It could be a grandparent that shared something about their life that you still remember today. Take a couple minutes, go for it.
Yeah, so I remember that. Glad I wasn't there. Dog sleep.
My dog was like that. But you know, you just don't want to.
Not congratulatory them, but encourage them.
Okay, thank you so much for discussing those stories. And sorry if I'm going to cut you off right now wherever you're at. I loved looking out, and I loved the little connections and what I call in a class that we teach here, resonancy or resonance. Where we're seeing connections as we're sharing stories from our childhood. I could see eyes kind of lighting up and like, oh, I remember this when I was 3, and like a spider was there, and so on, you know, things like that, right? And I remember those things as well. Like, I do remember when I was 3 and there was a spider, actually. I remember that moment. And it's interesting how we remember this, right? We remember, my first memory ever is a story. When I was 2.5 years old and I was on my first boat ride, and I'm sitting on my sister's lap, and we're going over waves, and all I thought in my head, there was a story presented to me. I'm like, okay, I know this shape. What is this shape? A whale. That's right, it's a whale. And we're in my state. We're in a lake in my county in the middle of Oregon. And so I just say to my sister, I'm like, that is a big whale. It's a huge whale. And I just heard her laughing at me, and I'm like, I don't understand why you're laughing, because my 2.5-year-old mind, I'm like, this is a big whale, and we're going over it right now. So. Keep in mind the things you just shared. Some of these quotes, I tried to make them pretty big, but hopefully we can read them from the back. Okay? Yeah, can? Good. These are some famous authors that have talked about story and its principles here. And on the back of your paper is some quotes. Now, these ones that are on the screen are not on the back, but we're going to look at these ones on the back. Okay? After nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. if you think about the things you have learned and gained, some of you appreciate different subjects than others. For me, math and me never got along, ever. But I always appreciated when it was told in a story, like my aunt, PEMDAS. I still remember today what that stands for, I think. It's been a while. But that really helped. I love this quotation. Mary Catherine Bateson, that the human species thinks in metaphors and learns through stories. We truly learn through stories. Now, an interesting question could be like, well, what then is a story? And this is what I ask my students a lot. We ask 3 questions in class, like, what is a story, what is it for, and why does that even matter? What is a place you feel, perhaps, that we experience story that wouldn't be, maybe you wouldn't necessarily think about it as a story, if that makes sense? Does anybody have an idea, like, I experience story here. Like, when I drive down the freeway, I'm experiencing stories. What I'm seeing on the left and right. Right? What's another place you think in your life where we experience story that maybe it's not a book, it's not a movie, it's not a stage? Where do we experience story? Nate, in the back. Yeah. Song. Story. What else? Yeah. Memes. Yes, absolutely. Garden, sorry. Yes, thank you. Your garden is a story. It truly is. Yes. At church. Think about what God has provided us. He could have made a list of commandments and only a list, which, there's lists, but only a list. But gratefully, God has given us scriptures that with stories in them. I think He might know the power that a story has. Is there any other places that you feel like you experience story? Yes.
When we share our days with each other.
Yes, when you share your day with each other. We actually live, breathe, think story. And it's almost hardwired in us. And that's how it began. Very interesting. Now, I love this picture because I feel like it represents that we are walking in and through story almost day in and day out. So, how do we use it? How are we aware of it? What do we do with it? Now, we asked these questions before, like, what is story, what is it for, and why does it matter? But I want to talk to you about this concept. Now, this is on your piece of paper. It's on the front, and it's over in the concepts column. Okay? Has anyone ever picked up a book, and you began reading, and then when you closed the book, unbeknownst to you, 5 hours had passed? Okay, yes, I've experienced this many times. Through a lot of stories. Most recently, I experienced it. I read the Fablehaven books, the Dragon Watch ones. I just finished the last one quite a few months ago.